how Black Myth Wukong developers' history of sexism is complicating its journey to the West. Indie developer Game Science's global fame is forcing it to confront its own sexism and that of the Chinese tech industry. Okay? That's not what's happening here at all. This is a hit piece, and it's by IGN. It's written by an entity, as Kyle would put it, named Rebecca Valentine, and co-written by someone named Ki-Hoon Chan. Now, at the end of this extremely long article, it's so long, I listened to the entirety of Beethoven's Symphony No. 1, and I still hadn't finished the article at that point. It's too long. So, Ki-Hoon Chan, the disclaimer at the end of the article, notifies us that, oh, by the way, Ki-Hoon, who's talking about how terrible things are in China when it comes to the games industry and the tech industry? Well, she was actually in a long, torrid, passionate affair with someone who worked at one of the subsidiaries at Tencent. And so she's possibly an embittered bitch who's mad at her ex. So anyway, they do what hit pieces do. It starts off where they build up their subject before tearing it down. And so they build it up, blah, blah, blah. And then they go, for an indie studio that has only released mobile titles within the country, this widespread acclaim over Black Myth Wukong, which is for the kids, is a largely unprecedented feat, particularly for a game that has not been released yet. But beneath the luster of this Souls-like is the studio plagued by claims of sexism. The claims of sexism is doing a lot. Several posts have surfaced from Chinese social media site Weibo, or is it Weibo, written by individuals from the studio that contain multiple references to genitalia and sexual innuendos. These references and innuendos are not directed at anyone in particular, but this is what they're calling sexism. Written by individuals from the studio that contain multiple references to genitalia and sexual innuendos. That's misogyny, that's sexism, according to this stupid-ass article. These have provoked a backlash among some in the games community, not many, and many of whom are women, probably 5 women. This was coupled by recruitment posters by the studio, produced in 2015, which featured images and headlines that point to a culture of ingrained sexism in game science. This is a hit piece, and they're taking the dumbest things that women just found offensive, some women, and they've turned it into sexism because if I'm offended, then you were trying to do this to me on purpose. I'm a woman. You made a woman feel bad about something. Therefore, you're a misogynist. IGN spoke to several women familiar with gaming culture, as well as the games and technology industry in China, many of whom requested to be anonymous for fear of backlash from fans of game science and the broader games community. So that's another thing. This article disabled comments, and they also disabled replies on the Twitter post for this. They know they put out a bullshit hit piece. In the eyes of many female players, game science has a notably negative reputation, said Jin, pseudonym, a Chinese games designer who's now based outside of China. She's not even in China, and she's running her mouth. I admire their dedication and work. I had high expectations for their game until I came across their misogynistic remarks around 2021, which was reported in the news. These feminists in particular, because this article is really just about them trying to help China become more feminist, but also try to hurt the game here in the West. They're trying to get people who care about this stuff on Twitter to complain about it and once again try to boycott it. Now, it hasn't worked for Final Fantasy 16, really hasn't worked for Hogwarts Legacy, but they only know one thing because they only care about one thing. They're not interested in games themselves. They're interested in taking games away from gamers. They only see gamers as straight white men. One of the big examples about the sexism at Game Science is the co-founder, some guy named Feng Jie. They go, Feng, in particular, has an outsized presence within the games industry, with a penchant for sharing introspective insights on game development, peppered with crude metaphors and boorish innuendos. So they're really going after this man who, in 2007, penned this lengthy article called Who Has Murdered Our Game, where he talks about the difficulties of game development in China. And he goes, what murdered our game? Is it because the sperm isn't virile enough? Is the pregnancy too short? Is the baby lacking nutrition? Are the doctors in charge of cesarean sections lowly skilled? Why can't we produce a healthy child? This is one of the examples of sexism at Game Science, because this dude Feng Jie has been saying things that they don't like. So women get offended at something this guy says, and now this is a problem for the gaming industry. Gamers are supposed to care. This is not sexist. Just because a woman is offended by something doesn't mean it's sexist. Then there's the Weibo post that garnered significant backlash. So Feng Jie, right, he's responding to the release of the pre-alpha video. And he says things like, I want to expand my circle and hire more people, get licked until I can't get an erection. And then several lines down, he also adds, I know you just happen to be a little depressed. It's my honor to provide you with some comfort in the lower half of your body. He later doubled down with a separate comment saying that I got wet after watching it a couple of times. The pressure in my crotch is immense. So because he's saying things that women find offensive, or some women found offensive, he said these things. He's not referring to women. He's not talking about anybody in particular. He didn't call out Kay Hong Chan or Rebecca Valentine or whatever. That name sounds made up, but he didn't call anybody out. He didn't talk about women. He's just making comments. They're mad and they're saying that this is a problem of sexism. But to other industry professionals, because people was like, yeah, it may be crude, but it's not the big of a deal. He's making a beautiful game. We're excited about it coming out. It's important to the culture and history of gaming in China. But to other industry professionals and players, these comments felt unnecessarily crude and off-putting. So what? Again, all they want to do is rub out anything that men are interested in, men's behavior. Everything is toxic masculinity. Everything is sexism. Everything is supposed to be catered to them and their feelings. It's absurd and it's childish and immature. And it's funny that as feminists, they talk about how powerful women are supposed to be, but they victimize themselves endlessly. This article is supposedly about game sciences contending with sexism in their culture, when it's literally just about some guys being crude in the way they talk about things. That's it. One example of this manifesting, talk about the sexism or whatever in the gaming industry in China, they go, one example of this manifesting that we were pointed to was from the company Douyin Games, developer of Gunfire Reborn. At one point, its CEO, Xiu Bao, laid off 11 female employees as part of an internal investigation, with one anonymous employee alleging that Xiu Bao shared in a board meeting that he did so because he didn't want another feminist bitch in the company. Somebody makes this point somewhere that they go, he's not talking about women, he's talking about feminists. Now, apparently somebody said this, I read it somewhere. They went and explained that those women who were fired were actually involved in some kind of scandal, and they were supposed to show up at the board meeting, but then all the women that were supposed to show up at the meeting that got fired all said they couldn't come to work that day because they were pregnant. They just called out sick. So anyway, at a certain point they go, it doesn't help that until very recently, almost all video games launching in China's walled-off market were marketed explicitly toward men, effectively increasing perceptions that women did not belong in the space. Feminists certainly don't. There was this game called Retirement Simulator. The game was criticized at its early access launch last year by a number of women for a certain character's appearance coming across as over-sexualized. So see, women are complaining. They're in the space, right? And they want to be in the space. But then they're complaining about over-sexualized female characters. So then the developer, Doublethink Studio, made adjustments to the character. So they made adjustments to the character as well as other changes in response, only to be hit with a massive backlash from another segment of its audience. The main segment of the audience. They make it seem like the few women who would play this game were the valid ones. Their criticisms were valid. And Doublethink, these idiots, decided to listen to them. If you don't like it, you don't have to play the game. Why would you change it for people who's not going to play the game anyway? So they got hit with a massive backlash from another segment of the audience, the actual gamers, for supposedly pandering to a feminist audience. They clearly were. This article is so full of shit. This stupid woman or person, I don't know, this entity points out something very clear and obvious. Women complained about a character being overly sexualized. The developers listened to these stupid ass women and changed it. The change would never have happened if it wasn't for these women complaining. And yet they're acting like it's supposed pandering. Even today, the game's Steam reviews are mostly negative, with many negative reviews seeming to refer to the change. Seeming. Careless removal of content, change of artwork, all so that the simp developer of the game can suck up and please some extreme feminists. Read one review from last May. Would not recommend for anyone with more than a single brain cell. And I think that's the entire point when it comes to, being anti-woke, anti-SJW. Diversity is not a problem. Inclusion is not a problem. What becomes a problem is the people who want to be included, who demand inclusion and diversity, don't actually want diversity. They don't want games to be made for men where the women are, forget over-sexualized. That's a bullshit term. Men find women attractive. I'm going to keep saying this. Women find men attractive, and then everything in between. And these same people who complain, they have all this gay fetish artwork in their likes. They got furry porn, all this stuff, but they hate what men like. And it's, you come off sounding like some weird preacher who's trying to foment hate in the community. Like all you have to do is just look at what's happening. Black Myth Wukong is a game that people are interested in and looking forward to. Because IGN doesn't really care about games like that. They've decided to hit the game with this stupid article to get as many people in the West to speak out against it. They even have somebody in this stupid ass article who says, oh, they just want people to be aware of it. Like this one good woman goes, as a female player, I actually wanted to buy the game originally. Forget it. I'll just keep playing foreign AAA games. Bye-bye. Well, who cares? Yeah, bye. Go. I wish more of these woke SJW idiots would go. As someone else says here, in response, detractors diminish the severity of Game Science's remarks while defending Black Myth's status as a potential massive breakout game for the Chinese industry. I didn't even care about that either. I just want good games. That success, many argued, did not need to involve women. It doesn't involve women. AAA games and most games actually don't need female players. This is true. One person commented on Duban. What about the pitiful sales you contribute? Can it save Game Science from fire or something? It's true. And this is the crazy thing. Women don't need men to support the hobbies that they're interested in. Women didn't need men to go see Barbie. Women needed men to go see their feminist version of Charlie's Angels. The best argument against women being in male spaces are feminists who get triggered at everything men do in their own space. The thing is, it's not misogyny to make crude jokes and sexual innuendos. I mean, those comments weren't even made at anybody in particular. Women just got annoyed and mad at it. Why would men want women in their spaces if they can't talk and act like men? They got to walk on eggshells. This isn't a situation of women being in space and a man can't say, hey, you got a great ass, or grab them or something. This is a situation literally of men design attractive, curvy, buxom women. And then the women at the studio will complain that it's overly sexualized and that it makes them feel unsafe. They want to take the recklessness out of men in male spaces just to appease feminists. Not even women, just feminists.
Jez has those boys cooped up like a pair of jackrabbits, Ethel.
He has his reasons.
Well, I know that, but you can't raise boys to be scared of life. You gotta brew some recklessness into them.
I think that's terrible advice.
No, you don't.